Okay, this is my second video attempt to do a review of a watch that I bought recently. These are my notes. As you can see, it's the CASIO GWM5600BC-1. So these are my notes, and here's the actual watch itself. There's the manual. Just wanted to go over the basic sort of features here. Alright, the key features: it has a reversed LCD display. Most people will know what that means, but for those who don't, basically it's white on black rather than black on white. It has an auto EL backlight, which is a really cool feature. Basically, if you're holding the watch parallel to the ground, you tilt it 40 degrees, the auto EL backlight will come on and you can see it in the dark. Solar power. It's kind of hard to see the solar panel, but you can see it under the right conditions. It's that basically that octagonal ring around the central display. Basically, it's highly efficient. 5 minutes of exposure to direct sunlight will give it an 8-month charge under normal operating conditions, so that's pretty damn impressive. This watch features atomic time. It's got a little radio receiver built into it. This is not just US time, but it's multi-band world atomic time, so basically anywhere in the world the watch can set itself to local time. Of course, that doesn't happen entirely automatically. It's supposed to, but sometimes for whatever reason that will fail, in which case you have to do it manually. It takes about 7 to 14 minutes to set if you're getting a good signal. Under normal conditions, the watch will reset itself 6 times a day. If it can't get a signal, it will just go with the most recent setting. Okay, as far as the basic features of the watch, it's pretty standard. Has everything that most watches in this range will have. Shock resistant. Of course, it's one of the CASIO G-SHOCK line, so that's a big deal with them, and I haven't really tested it out, but it's supposed to be pretty exceptional as far as shock resistance. It's water resistant up to 200 meters, has 5 alarms, a timer, a calendar, set up to 2099, and an adjustable band. When I first got it, this band had too many links. It was actually pretty easy to, just using a sharp object, I was able to pop out these little metal retainers and take out a couple of links to get the watch to the right size. Pretty easy procedure. As far as criticism for this watch, basically the display is really cluttered. This is common with a lot of new watches and devices. Basically, I mean, you can see all that stuff, that extra kind of like text. I mean, when you look at the size of the manual here, it's kind of ridiculous to have all this stuff on the watch all the time for stuff that you're basically only going to be using, like, you know, once in a while. And of course you always have the manual for reference, so really it's kind of excessive to have sort of this extra sort of interface clutter that really is distracting. My other major criticism would be sort of the low contrast of the reverse display under some circumstances, especially in low light. Of course, the auto illumination helps with that quite a great deal, but it's still kind of hard to read sometimes. I don't think the regular display would be much better, and I have a little diagram to sort of explain further my criticism in that area. Like, basically on standard liquid crystal displays. On layer 6 is the reflective layer, and that's basically this kind of sort of dull olive drab like green color that you're seeing. There's absolutely no reason for that. I mean, we're not stuck in the 80s any longer, and it would be fully possible to make that pretty much any color that you could want. It could be white, it could be, you know, fluorescent orange. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't need to be olive drab, and that really, of course, creates a contrast issue. Secondly, this is kind of like a personal gripe of mine. Basically, most digital watches use what's known as a segmented display for the characters. You can see it pretty clearly here. Basically, it's something that was designed during the 80s to produce pretty much any numerical character from 0 to 9 in a very efficient manner. Unfortunately, along with that efficiency, you sort of get illegibility. As you can see here, there's a huge gap, so from a distance the characters don't quite read as well as the matrix style pixel numerals. As you can see here, there's no space. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but basically you're losing 45 degrees at almost every juncture, and that of course is going to reduce your overall legibility of the numbers. And the reason I bring that up with this watch in particular is because it's a hybrid. Let me see if I can get a good view of this. As you can see in the upper right hand corner, there's a pixel display for the date, and the reason that they have that there is so when you're switching to world time, you can get the alphanumeric characters. And I really just don't understand why we're still using the segmented system. They could have very easily used it for the upper left hand corner characters for the day of the week. They could have used it for the actual numbers down at the bottom. There's really just no excuse. And my third major criticism is, you see on the display there how the far left 0 is distorted. That's because basically they ran out of room on the display. Very poor planning. They could have easily compensated for that. It's really pretty ridiculous that they didn't have enough room to fit all those numbers in there and have them all exactly the same. And okay, there's just one other complaint I have, and that's the size and the weight. As you can see, it's a pretty big watch. I mean, it's not like monstrous, but it's a lot bigger than it really needs to be, and I understand a lot of that's the shock protection. But most people are not going to be needing an excessive shock protection for their watches, so it's really kind of unoptimized. It's quite large, quite thick, quite heavy. I mean, you can definitely feel the weight, unlike a lot of watches. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how much it weighs, but a few ounces more than it really needs to be. So that's pretty much the review. I guess I'll kind of try to just give people a better view of all the components and so forth. I was really kind of irritated that on the website they pretty much only had one picture. I had to go to another third-party forum to really sort of get some more views of the watch so that it'd be possible to see some of the more intricate design elements. So it's a very sturdy band. You don't have to worry about it coming off. Very nice locking mechanism. Pretty much foolproof. Kind of an elegant design, actually. And that's basically my review of this watch.